Welcome everybody into another episode of the Fireside podcast. Once again, my name is Righteous, and joining with me is Yupflow, top laner of Phantom Troop Lucifer and self-proclaimed number one Nick Bob fan. Apologies. Yupflow, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Games could be better, but we're looking forward to next week.
Yep, it's definitely a grind throughout this season. I know you guys have been putting in the work, so we'll have to see what happens next week. Apologies for the little audio thing that I had going on, but it should be fixed now. Um, I mean, what a week it was for ECL. So there's lots to cover, lots to talk about, and of course, we'll be starting off with the recap of last week's games from Cinder Week 5. On the Kindle side of things, your own Phantom Troop Lucifer lost 0-2 to Rivals DX. Oh, I got those flipped around. But Jolly Rogers Calypso's Calamity lost 2-1 to GCCE Belmont's. Forge Esports Atlantis took a 2-0 over Feed the Dream. And for Spark, we had Solus Gaming with the upset 2-0 sweep of Forge Esports Mjolnir. Jolly Rogers Black Pearl losing 0-2 to the newly formed GCC All Smite. And Kingdoms of Kittens Gasai taking the 2-0 over Ember Flames. So, like we always do, we're going to break them down a little bit for you. Starting with the first match posted in the match results, which was that Kingdoms of Kittens game versus Ember Flames. So, Yupflow, Ember Flames is a team that has been struggling, of course, and Kingdoms of Kittens, outside of their week 1 loss to SG, has looked very, very good. And this match proved to kind of continue those modes of thought for both of these teams. A 2-0 sweep for KOKG. Looking at the match results here, anything in particular standing out to you for game 1?
Uh, for game one, uh, I there wasn't really anything specific.
Mm-hmm.
But I would watch through like all of the games in preparation.
Okay.
So I know like Solo Rusher, he was finding like a lot of good angles and was able to like pick off like a lot of targets.
Okay. So Solo Rusher kind of became the playmaker for KOKG here in this one. Kind of an interesting Silas game, only because not the greatest ultimates to steal outside of maybe the Rel, the Wukong, the Oriana. Um, but a very nice team comp from KOKG, a nice front to back. 3 melees to set up a nice wall for Mythic Chaos and Helium Bamboo for that back line. Um, it was interesting that this game was over in 28 minutes. Um, the Jinx build didn't really get to build anything to deal with tanks. The game was just over before that point happened. And from what it seems like, Solar Rusher was able to really up the tempo of this game, find a lot of playmaking opportunities, an incredible gold lead to have as a team. 12K up at 28 minutes. For Ember Flames, another tough look here in this one. Vile Fox stepping in. I mean, outside of the Nubian bot lane, brand new faces or faces we've seen, but in different roles at this point. A tough series for Volpone, and Smoker doing his best here in jungle. It continued in game 2. So a 27-minute victory for KOKG. Once again, a scaling ADC that doesn't really get to scale, but does well nonetheless. Mythic Chaos going 3-0-3 with the most damage in the game on that Smolder. Therocletes having a quiet game 2, but the rest of the map was able to kind of steamroll. Solar Rusher 5-1-1 on Echo, Raw 2 on Mordekaiser 6-2-1, and Ember Flames once again kind of looking a bit lost. I believe at this point they are out of playoff contention. You have to win in these situations. Obviously you don't have a ton to play for. What's your outlook moving forward? You know, you have 2 weeks left. You're already out of playoffs. What would you tell your team here for Ember Flames?
Uh, you're still looking to have fun. Like, uh, League is a game where you're supposed to be having fun, and you can have like a great time even if you lose. So just like keep morale good. Uh, if you're out of playoffs, then like that means you have nothing to lose and you can
True.
play all out every game.
Yeah, a lot of times in the pro scenes, right, we'll see, an eighth place, ninth place, 10th place finish team in the last couple weeks just really pop off, play with no limits. And you get to see the talent of that team or the cohesion of that team really unlock once the pressure is off. So hopefully for Ember Flames, they can continue to, grind out these last 2 weeks, but finish on a high note. Maybe picking up a win or a series win or whatever it might be. Just finding those small positives for themselves. And for KOKG, it's quite the opposite story. They're vying for a number one seed in their division. So very nice showing from them against Ember Flames. They keep the momentum of their season, haven't lost since week one, and we'll have to see if they continue to do that in week 6. I can't believe it's been 6 weeks already. It's crazy. Uh, Forge Esports Atlantis picks up the 2-0 against Feed the Dream. Now, this was a series that was kind of circled for me. There was questions about the overall strength of Feed the Dream after a kind of easier schedule to start off the season. And for Atlantis, this was a team that has been tested by the likes of Belmont's. Um, so we were curious just to see how this one would come out. If Feed the Dream can really pick up a solid win, or 4G Sports Atlantis, after I believe it was Deadly said, "Hey, we're the only one to pick up a game against Belmont, so we should be considered second overall in the division." They get the job done with a 2-0, a very long series, starting off with a 42.5-minute game. In this game one, we saw the debut of Ariam Pookie, the new top laner for Atlantis, playing a pretty tough matchup as Gnar into this Malphite, but able to make it work. Deadly and Crow on the Lucian, and Milio able to pop off, while Tactical Nuke X and Call Me Loops rounded out a very strong team fighting comp. For Feed the Dream, they were without Lily, as they had let us know. So Trashy filled in once again. Pretty positive performance on this Pantheon, but the bottom side of the map seemingly fell apart. You said you watched all of these games. What happened in this game one?
Um, it was just like a very difficult game for the Ashe.
Mm-hmm.
Lucian Milio is like the known counter into Ashe Seraphine, and it very much showed. Like Lucian was dashing in like very early on, like levels 3, 4, something like that.
Okay.
And they were like really maximizing damage with the Lucian Milio. And like I kept watching him deadly lull dash in, and it was really honestly just a great game for him. But uh the Seraphine, she was landing like a lot of good ults. So I really can't like blame the bot lane too much.
Mm-hmm.
It was a hard game, and Chubby Chernobyl especially like made it work.
Okay. Yeah, tough game from Ash, finishing 5-10, and this is kind of an uncharacteristic series from Ballistic Demon. Part of the reason, why you can say, well, of course they would lose 0-2 with this kind of performance, and sometimes there are off weeks that happen with players. Maybe it was, Trashy stepping in once again. Maybe it was just, a bout of food poisoning that seems to go around ECL. Whatever the case may be, that kind of continued into game two as Ballistic Demon went 1-4-1 on this Ashe. It was a very long game. They kept up in CS, um, but Deadly and Crow locked in a kind of unique bot lane in this Mel Nami. So a lot of the times in MSI, if you guys have been following, you'll see Mel come out into expected either mages or that Ash Seraphine combo. Now that it's off the board, I'm surprised to see the Mel come out, but Deadly popped off, went 11-1 and 5. Um, the rest of the map for Atlantis wasn't far behind. Call Me Loops a little bit high in the death department here in game two, but just a super solid performance from the Atlantis bot lane once again. Crow going deathless with 16 assists. Pookie having a very nice performance in his week one, or well, not week one, but his season debut. And for Feed the Dream, it was just Trashy had a nice Pantheon game, but then a Trundle matchup with no tank, it's gonna be kind of hard to pull off. Goes 2-8-4. Rainster and Tame had decent performances, but yeah, it's so uncharacteristic for us to see Ballistic Demon struggle. Do you think it's just an off week? Do you think it's just Deadly and Crow really showing the power of their bot lane duo, or perhaps maybe it's a little bit of both?
Yeah, for sure. It's a bit of both. Deadly was like playing very well this week, and I only know Ballistic from like this series and the series we played all the way back in week one.
Mm-hmm.
And in those two series, he wasn't performing extremely well. But I'd have to look back to see if he has like good games between these two series.
Yeah, so he was actually ranked, I think, top three last week in terms of ADCs or our bottom laners, I should say. Now that we see mages coming out, um, but it's correct in the series that he struggles. The team overall seems to suffer for it. So maybe that's something that Ballistic Demon will have to figure out on their own. Maybe their team can help them out, but they really need that player to perform in order to have uh, efficient series and pick up series wins. We move on to Rivals DX taking on Phantom Troop Lucifer. RVL wins 2-0. Yeah, Flo, we're going to have to talk about it. You played the game, obviously. You went into Mossman in this game one matchup as the Scion into Gwen. Um, pretty important matchup, right? Because your division is very tightly contested for those playoff spots. What ended up happening here in this game one?
I think the games were posted in the wrong order.
Oh, they were okay.
The Titan game should have been game one.
Gotcha. So what I mean, for those of you that are watching and listening, my bad. I always trust that the players were posting correctly. Obviously, sometimes there's a little bit of mistrust. So in this game one, it was actually Yupflow on Ornn into Mossman's Zaheen. Um, and we could talk about the comps as Yupflow breaks it down, but we'll give him a chance to talk about that game one.
Uh, Sorry, there are like fireworks going on like all around me
Oh,
right now.
gotcha.
Uh,
It is
But
that weekend.
uh, yeah, so in game one or
Hmm.
the Zaheen game, I may be mistaken. I'm looking at the drafts. Says Gwen was the game one, so that might be my bad actually.
Okay,
Uh,
no worries.
but yeah, the lane matchup was fine for me. Um, I know Castor he was like executed like level 3 trying to tower dive the Cassidon. Um, but uh the game really only started like going like later on in the game. It wasn't like a very fast-paced game.
Hmm.
I know Typhoon, he was like very good like in the early game. Like he orchestrated the whole map,
Hmm.
and it was just like very good like team play from him. But yeah, the game really only started going up in the latter half, and it was like team fights and a lot of uh, wonderful like gameplay.
Hmm. Yeah, so a pretty slow burn in the Gwen matchup game. So that game went 33 minutes. Razors for Life ends up going off on this Cassidon pick, 15-3-9. Um, Obviously, Kazir tried to answer with that Jace. Didn't end up working for your side. That slow burn. They have a Gwen. They have a Cassidon. They're going to scale. Were you worried about that? Is that kind of what did you in? When all was said and done, was that just they were able to outscale at that point?
Um, like yeah, a part of it was like the scaling that really did us in. But we were still finding like good angles, like a little bit earlier than I know Cassidon went off for the pentakill, but I remember they like overextended and then
Mm-hmm.
like we were able to make a play, I think. Yeah.
Gotcha. We shift our focus to game two. Um, this rivals team comp was gonna have to play a little bit faster than they did in game one. Not a ton of scaling baked into their composition. Um, so it was a kind of, I would assume, a pretty tough situation for you on this Ornn playing into the Zaheen. Zaheen's a fighter that really wants to just be able to put as much damage as possible for as long as possible, and Ornn kind of allows him to do that in lane. Um, Husky Sauce, they end up going the Ash Zyra combo from way back in the day. And they seem to have some pretty good success. Razors continues his momentum a little bit high in the death count, but looked to be the primary playmaker with himself and Typhoon. This game too, Kaztor had a very nice performance on the Syndra, going 14-5-6. But it didn't swing your way. What ended up happening here in this game to you, Yupflow?
Yeah, so like again, Typhoon, just amazing early game. He was finding so many ganks, really good from him. And then that bridged the way into Mossman being able to like carry in the back half. And he really did carry. Like his ults, getting onto like four people, like three, four people, and
Mm-hmm.
just like wiping the team basically.
Gotcha. So a very nice performance from Rivals. An unfortunate result for you all over for PTL, and it's a very tightly contested division. So get a sting, but there's 2 weeks left to make up for it, and we'll talk about that later on in the preview portion. We move on. So Solus Gaming takes the upset sweep over SG. Now I did say that if Solus Gaming ended up taking game one, we could see an upset because Mjolnir had yet to lose a game, let alone a series. Um, and that's kind of what happened. So SG in a 42-minute game, I heard it was a very back and forth affair. It looked like both teams actually performed very, very well. But the Shyvana from Jake able to pick up a win. Really, you can't look at SG and identify a standout performer from the match results screen. I would say that Pot of Greed could have been the MVP even in the loss just by looking at that. And so I'm gonna defer to Yupflow. He said he's watched all these games to break it down for me. What ended up happening in this game one to result in an SG win?
Like you said, it was very back and forth. Um, so I'm pretty sure SG like built up an early lead.
Mm-hmm.
But then like come mid game, there was one play where they were like clumped together in mid, probably like preparing for drag.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just get hit with like Malphite ult, Sejuani ult, like everything over the top. And then at that point, uh, Mjolnir was in control. But then like Jake, he was like diving in, making picks, and yeah, Jake to me was the MVP of this game.
Okay. So Jake able to stabilize the mid game and eventually find the win for SG. That was almost a 42-minute game into a 45-minute banger that featured the likes of Muertes Smolder. Jake goes off on the Wukong 10, 1, and 11. A very nice team fighting comp coming out from SG. On the opposite side, a lot of good answers into what SG was presenting. But I feel like Mjolnir's composition played into SG's hands the later the game went. So you look at Mjolnir's side, you have Trundle, Vi, Lysandra, Kaisa, and Alistar. And that to me screams pick comp, right? We want to find one of these carries and execute them so that we can secure ourselves whatever we want, whether it be a tower, an objective, etc. My guess, without watching the games, is that the later this game went, the more team fights ended up developing. And for Mjolnir, that was not where they wanted to be. JD Dog on the Trundle goes 1-7-1. My assumption is that they ended up grouping instead of pushing with that hole breaker. They can't really function in the team fight, and SG was able to close it out.
Yeah, I would say like you're spot on with that analysis. So just like post series, I just like to shout out DT Dub. He was like really good on the Ezreal and the Kaisa.
Mm-hmm.
I remember he's like a whole item ahead, like 80 CS ahead on the Ezreal,
Mm-hmm.
and like just the same like on the Kaisa.
Yeah, he's
He
full build
performed.
before the other carries at 4 items or 5 items, I should say.
Yeah, it was like just
Mm-hmm.
really good, like laning and like being able to maximize like his gold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the team comp that favors team fighting probably prevails the later the game goes. So despite DT Dub's best efforts in this game too, Mjolnir falls. Now I will say that if you're gonna suffer your first loss, you might as well do it in the regular season when the result doesn't matter as much. Sure, it might have some seeding implications for playoffs, but playoffs single elim, so you don't want to lose there. So Mjolnir, hopefully that they are able to regroup and learn from this loss. And for SG, um, just like your division, in the middle and bottom of the table, their division at the top between Mjolnir, SG, and KOKG is looking pretty crazy heading into the last 2 weeks of this ECL season. So that's something we're gonna have to keep our eyes on. GCCE All Smite makes their debut, taking the Forsaken Regicide Forsaken spot here in ECL, and they pick up a win 2-0 over Jolly Rogers Black Pearl. And I guess it was a week of pentas, but before we get to that, we'll cover game one, where a very interesting team comp comes out from GCC's All Smite. I would almost argue that it's a solo queue comp. They do have some nice things. So you have Talroma on the Amumu that can make plays with Samurai's Nico from the support position, and kind of have a wombo combo with Rev on the Yone. But the Fizz mid from, I'm gonna butcher this name, but I'm pretty sure it's Nanu Lima maybe, I'm not sure. Um, Plays the Fizz, goes deathless and 12-0-8, and I believe this player was actually an E sub. So very nice performance on a very short notice from them. And then JRPP, I mean, their struggles have been well documented to this point. A matchup where Lux Waves makes their debut, I believe, in the jungle position for this team. Previously, it was King BV. Um, and it's kind of the story of the season where they're not really able to get anything going in this one, and also might end up taking game one. Yupflow, anything stand out from you? or for you from this game one?
Yeah, that's my go, Nick Bob. He was counterpicked, Yone into Mundo. Actually played the Yone side a while back. And Nick Bob on the Mundo. Like he got a solo kill and he like salvaged this like terrible play where they're trying to fight in the jungle and they're like and Varus was our yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
Nick Bob just like completely salvaged a play in like their jungle, and I really can't say anything bad about him in this game or the next.
Yeah, so speaking of the next one, Kagran, a familiar face from Belmont, picks up a pentakill in a 27.5 minute game on the Smolder. Once again, a kind of interesting team comp coming from All Smite. And it's the only reason I bring it up is in both these games, and I mean no offense to your boy Nick Bob or JRPP, but maybe against a more difficult opponent, this lack of cohesion from top to bottom from All Smite might actually get them in trouble. It didn't really matter much here. Um, they pick up the win in 27.5 minutes. Uh, the game looked to be going. I did see this one. So it looked to be going JRBP's way. I think they had up to like a 3K gold lead, 2.5K gold lead at one point. Um, Fujin on the Swain paired with Tracker Jacker's Soraka was actually given All Smite's fits. But then they ended up overplaying their hands like two or three times back to back to back. They take a whole bunch of losing fights. And then GCC was able to run away with the rest of it. In this game too, obviously, congratulations to Kagger for getting the Penta. But Yupflow, any other game notes from that one?
I'd like to mention GCC Rev's Lethal Tempo. Uh,
Yes, yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
I think he just like forgot to change runes between games. But Nick Bob, he found a solo kill. That's my goat. And Poogie, he was like hands checking GCC All Smite, and like he wins like a 1v2, kills two, and then he baits Jarvan into dying
Hmm.
by Lux Waves, and he also like gets a solo kill, I believe, onto the Kassadin. Just like a really good game from like the solo laners there.
Yeah, Pookie had a really nice performance into Yanu's Kassadin. Yeah, I do remember Rev. So Rev played, for those of you listening, Rev played Shen and took Lethal Tempo. So I'm pretty sure he ended up having Yone runes on the Shen, which is a tough place to be. A little bit of a uh, whoopsie there, but yeah, for JRPP, that game too is something that you can look to build upon, right? So similar to Ember Flames, I'm pretty sure at this point they're eliminated from playoff contention with All Smite picking up this win. Um, Maybe I'm not right, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. But this game too, they had the lead, and so I don't know if they have a coach. I don't know who's helping them or what. But if they look at it and they could say, okay, we had the lead. What ended up going wrong? How could we have closed this out? Um, this is a game that you could definitely build some momentum upon into whatever the future may hold for all these players. But it was a nice early game from JRPP. Unfortunately for them, they could not finish it out, and All Smite takes the victory 2-0. And then last but not least, a pretty surprising result. It ended with GCC Belmont's taking the win over Jolly Rogers Calypso's Calamity. But it wasn't in the way that we expected. It was a 2-1 victory for the Belmonts. In game one, the series looked to be going like everyone had expected. So uh, wow, with T-Dye, I believe out of town, Pizza Pasta Mafia ends up making a debut here in ECL for this split on the Gwen. They get the matchup into the Ornn. And I don't know. I didn't see this game, but it looked like Benzie just wasn't able to play. They end up only getting 8,000 gold on the game, while Gwen almost got 15K, which is kind of an insane gold gap. And then you look at the rest of the map. Baru, played fine. Linda actually ended up with a nice gold lead in the counter matchup. Um, it was a fine performance from GCCE, and it ended it with a 29-minute win for them. Like I said, Linda's been a bright spot for this JRCC team for quite some time. Vex, a new jungler, actually played pretty well, despite a less than stellar scoreline, but they weren't able to close it out. For this game one, Yupflow, you watched it. Um, I mean, it just seemed like GCCE was able to do kind of whatever they wanted outside of a couple hiccups here and there.
Uh, yeah, so I think this game, uh, like, feel like Benzi was like holding up fine against the Gwen, but I think like it just really came down to like giraffe diff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have three like losing lanes, or at least lanes that really aren't gonna get prio with a Vi. Like, what is the Vi supposed to do there?
Yeah,
Uh, and then like Seraphine bot. I just really don't like that pick in general. I don't think it does enough damage.
pretty
Though it
interesting
does
build.
like, yeah. I just like they have a good like wombo combo, like Ornn, Seraphine, and then you have the follow up with like with the Mel. But there's a Tarek on the other side. Like you're not really gonna be able to get through like his ult. And
Mm-hmm.
there was this mid play, and like Tarek ult just like really wins them the game there.
Yeah, Beta has been playing exceptionally. Um, pretty much the whole pretty much the whole split. And yeah, I mean the composition had its flaws. So, double mage into um a Tarek and into a Jarvan, it's gonna be hard to kind of play, especially when your wombo combo can't ever pick up kills because you get behind. But the fortunes did turn for JRCC in game two. They actually pick up a win over Belmont, which this isn't the first time that we've seen Belmonts lose. They were kind of on the brink in game three against Atlantis, but um, from JRCC, definitely not something we were expecting. It was another 28-minute game. A very interesting comp from Belmont, and I specifically want to circle, sorry, Tycon on the Kiana. In my opinion, did not look very comfortable on that pick. Maybe this was a game where Belmont was trying things out, with playoffs secure for themselves, pretty much. But it ends up with a loss. Vexed on the Nocturne goes crazy, 11-2-8. Linda with a deathless performance, 307. Benzie, Muddy, and Lucifer able to contribute to that win as well. But it was interesting from Belmont's the comp that they ran and the way that they approached this game.
Yeah, I think like Vex on the Nocturne, like he held like all the control in the early game. Like he was like ulting bot like nonstop,
Mm-hmm.
just like really terrorizing that lane. And that just like pushed them into the driver's seat, and they were like easily able to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
The only like mishap was a bad Baron call, where
Mm-hmm.
like their bot lane gets killed off, but then they all respawn and then they retake Baron. Another bad Baron call by GCC, and then they get that, and then JRCC get that Baron, and then they just push and win the game from there.
Gotcha. So, you know, they end up going 1-1 through two games. Game three, match point, and it turns into a 40-minute slugfest. I don't think the results or the KDAs or anything you look at really tell the story of this game. It was actually pretty close. Um, Pizza Boston Mafia has a nice performance on the Mordekaiser. and Wolven Alchemist able to do a lot of work with this Caitlyn pick. But for JRCC, I honestly believe that if you asked any one of those players, they would probably tell you that they were in positions to win the game, and they just weren't able to close it out. It was a very even game state up until the very end, and I just think the veterancy and the previous run-in with Atlantis really did Belmont's a favor, where they were able to pick up that game 3 win.
I have to say, this is the one game that I was not able to watch. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, I don't really have much for this game.
Yeah, so Vex with another nice performance off the back of that the Nocturne game, goes 7-5-7 on the Pantheon. Linda, I feel like died a bunch to some all-ins from Tycon and Beru on the Malphite mid and Wukong jungle. Um, Binzi, uh, pretty tough looks in a Pizza Pasta Mafia with the Garen, but like I said, it was a very close game, probably closer than most expected. Maybe it was just Belmont's kind of an off week, whatever it might have been, but maybe not as we lost. Yupflow, are you still here?
Sorry, I just had to close my window. The fireworks are like super
Oh
loud
no,
right
you're
now.
good. I just wanted to make sure you were still connected with us. So yeah, that's it for the recap. Like I said, a very interesting week. With Mjolnir going down, with Beaumont's losing a game with JRCC, with a couple of other things. And so it made for some interesting power rankings, which I know everyone wants to get into. But we have to take a look at the standings before doing so. So here are the standings for Cinder after week 5. For Kindle, Belmont's remains at number 1. Atlantis rises all the way up to number 2. Feed the Dream at number 3. Rival ZX at number 4. Phantom Troop Lucifer and Yupflow at 5. And then Jolly Rogers Calypso's Calamity at 6. And then for Spark, KOKG, the new number 1 for that division. Mjolnir falls to 2, Solus Gaming at 3, and I believe the reasoning is win-loss records for all those 3 teams, because I know Solus Gaming holds the head-to-head over KOKG, but they have a worse overall game record. All Smites at 4, Ember Flames at 5, and then JRBP at 6. And like I said, I think with All Smite picking up that win, I'm pretty sure that they're locked for playoffs. Um, I could be wrong, so don't quote me. But I believe pretty much every scenario puts to them at least being the number 4 seed. Um, yeah, very interesting standings. So for Kindle, number 2 through 4 is up for grabs in terms of playoff seeding. For Spark, it's really those top 3 duking it out to see who walks away victorious in that division, and so it'll be interesting to follow. The next 2 weeks. So, yeah, Flo, I have a confession. These power rankings were hard. They were very hard. Last week, I was very confident that I nailed everything. This week, not so much. So we're gonna start with team rankings, and we're gonna make everybody mad there, and then we're gonna continue to make everybody mad with the positional power rankings. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. Yeah, you're like, yeah, whatever, man. Sure. All right. So here's the team power rankings. And like as always, we're gonna do the bottom half first before moving to the top half. So at number 12, we have Jolly Rogers Black Pearl. Number 11, we have Ember Flames. 10, Jolly Rogers Calypso's Calamity. 9, Phantom Troop Lucifer. 8, Feed the Dream. And 7, GCCE All Smite. Now I know All Smite's a new team, all the way at number 7. Kind of interesting. I hold the number 7 spot as the team to watch, or the player to watch in these power rankings, just because we either don't know a ton about them, or it was kind of an off week, or a rare on week. So they're kind of like at this spot for me where it's, what's going to end up happening with All Smite these next 2 weeks. But for 7 through 12, Yupflow, the floor is yours. You can tell me I suck and I don't know what I'm doing. You can agree with the rankings, whatever it might be. But I want to hear your opinion.
Uh, Yeah, I think Jolly Roger's Black Pearl should like be moved up like to 11th at least.
Okay, okay.
Uh there's Nick Bob on that team. He cannot be last place. That's all I have to say about that.
Gotcha, gotcha.
But other than that, from the bottom half, in terms of like power rankings, uh, I mean, I think they're all I think like bottom three is like a category, and then like
Mm-hmm.
top three. Uh, so they're all like interchangeable there to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think bottom half like pretty good.
Okay.
I would have PDL higher, but
Yeah.
that's just me.
Yeah. Yupflow would have PTL higher. Now it was interesting, right? So I debated All Smite between 7, 8, and 9, which means I also debated Feed the Dream and Phantom Troop Lucifer between those spots. So like you said, 7 through 9, you can debate the order. 10 through 12, you could definitely debate the order. But I think for all of these teams, especially yourself and Feed the Dream, PTL and Feed the Dream, they're two teams that are PTL is struggling. Feed the Dream is unproven, right? Um, I feel like that's fair to say. Where PTL has had a couple, I think it's 3 weeks now of losses, and Feed the Dream in their prove it game falls 0-2. So, like I said, 2 weeks left, plenty of time for these teams to move up the rankings. Unless you're on Ember Flames and Jolly Rogers Black Pearl, it's gonna be pretty hard. You'd have to have a crazy upset. That's all I'll say. But the top half of the team power rankings at number 6, we have Rivals DX. Number 5, 4G Sports Atlantis. Number 4, 4G Sports Mjolnir. Number 3, Kingdoms of Kittens Gasai. 2, Solus Gaming. And 1, GCCE Belmonts. Your thoughts here, Yupflow?
Yeah, like when we played against Rivals DX, I thought they were like very good, like especially early game with Typhoon. I believe this is only his second week in, and like he's making wonders for the team.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I believe they're like about equal with Atlantis, from what I've seen. And then yeah, like 1 through 4, like another category where they're all interchangeable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the top four. Uh, Definitely the four strongest teams so far. In ECL. Um, 5 and 6. Making a case, but we'll have to see how these last 2 weeks go. Yeah, I think the top four. You can argue the positioning. I know QST was talking about how KOKG had just been formed, so that's why Solus won. Unfortunately, that head to head still exists, and so it was hard for me to justify moving Solus down, especially after the upset over Mjolnir. And then Beaumont's remaining undefeated, the last undefeated team. Hard to not rank them number one. So there are your team power rankings. Yeflo, I suggest you brace yourself. We're going over the top lane power rankings, and I don't think you're gonna like me after this one. Here are your top lane power rankings. Number 12, Volpone. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce their name, so let me know if I got it wrong. Probably did. 11, Your Bob, Nick Boy 101. Number 10, yourself, Yupflow from PTL. 9, Binzy from JRCC. 8, Tame from Feed the Dream. And 7, RX JD Dog. Now, Yupflow, before you start arguing as to why you should be higher, I do have to make something clear. So Tame dropped from number 2 to number 8, right? Which is a pretty significant drop. The only reason I'm justifying it is because he took himself out of the top lane role, and their Tame is swapping to mid this coming week, which signifies to me that either himself or his former mid laner aren't confident that that is going to be what it takes for this team to pick up games, and so Tame takes kind of a hit for it, if that makes sense. That's all I had to get out of the way. Now you have Flo. The floor is yours.
If we're looking at gameplay, I'm fine with myself at 10. But Nick Bob. You gotta put him higher. He was like solo killing Rev. Like that is not the 11th top laner.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I know most top laners think lane is game. Unfortunately for Nick Bob, that is not the case, and so it's a combination of a weaker team and maybe a weak mid to late game performance. I know Nick Bob is. I think he's just living for the memes at this point, right? He's not number 12. Hey, he's got that going. Volp one. I don't know how you say the name, but had a pretty rough performance. So it feels bad to make your debut and end up at number 12. But um, yeah, JD struggled in their matchup. Tame struggled in theirs. Benzie struggled in theirs. I think 7 through 12, it was just a whole bunch of struggle this week. Top half of the power rankings. Number 6, Rev making their debut with All Smite. 5, Pizza Pasta Mafia. 4, Belmont's. 4, I Am Pookie also making their debut with Atlantis. 3, IDK Inc. from Solus. 2, Ratsu, aka AI's number 1 hater at for KOKG. And then number 1, Mossman 3432 for Rivals DX. Mossman has had quite the climb through these power rankings. And credit where credit's due. He's been there since week 1, and he's continued to perform and continues to better himself week in, week out. So, number 1 while T dies away. Pizza Pasta Mafia played very well. It's just hard to justify subs coming in very, very high. But for number 1 through 6, Yupflow, anything you'd change here?
Uh, yeah, I think like the rankings are all good. Um, Maybe like I would switch Pizza Pasta Mafia with I Am Pookie, but like
Mm-hmm.
he's only subbing in for this week, I believe.
Yeah.
So like it's really fine there. And yeah, like Mossman, I believe on the stat sheet, or on the stats site, he was like MVP, only because he had like 5+ games. But he's really like proving himself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for all of these top laners 1 through 6, now Rev kind of the exception. I should really say 1 through 4, right? Because Pizza Pasta Mafia is a sub. But Pookie had a very nice debut. We'll have to see how they continue to perform the last 2 weeks. But for IDK Inc., Ratsu, Mossman, this is more of a hey, you had a very nice week for yourself. You've been consistent in play the last several weeks. IDK Inc. got his bounce back after his bout with foodborne illness. Um, and yeah, just really good stuff from these top 6. We'll have to see what happens when T-Dag gets back. How these end up shaking up. Of course, the results of the next 2 weeks will matter as well. But we'll see. Hopefully, I didn't make anybody too upset, because I'm going to make somebody upset with these jungle power rankings. I know it. And mid lane was pretty hard, and bottom and support, really. Jungle power rankings up on the screen. Number 12, Smoker from Ember Flames. 11, Lux Waves from JRPP. 10, Trashy from Feed the Dream. 9, Dragging It Out from Phantom Troop Lucifer. 8, Talroma from GCC All Smite. And 7, rounding out the bottom of the top, or sorry, the top of the bottom, Vexed from JRCC. What do you got for me?
Yeah, I believe like Talroma had like a very good series.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was very consistent in his 2 games. Uh, and Vexed, he did have a bad performance, game 1, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
on the Vi, right? But yeah, I think I would personally put Talroma above Vexed, but like
Mm-hmm.
for the Nocturne game, Vexed was very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was tough. I was, it's funny you bring that up because I was debating for both of these players. At the end of the day, Vex, like you said, a pretty poor game 1 performance, but the draft really didn't help. The Vi really able to wasn't really able to play, I would say. So it's hard to fault a player when the draft really just says like, hey, you're going to do poorly. I think games 2 and 3 really made up for it. Game 2 in particular, but even that game 3 showed a lot of good stuff. I believe on Pantheon, and like you said, Talonoma was very consistent um, in his ECL debut. Trashy. I think last we saw him, he was like number 4 or 5. Kind of a tough week for him, dealing with that early game from Typhoon, like you were saying. And then dragging it out, Lux Waves and Smoker. I think this is Smoker's first time on the jungle list. Same with Lux Waves. Just came in, really tough spots. Dragging it out's a player that I think was as high as number 2 or something. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Yupflow was very high on the list. I think it's just a matter of some downwards momentum happening for PTL. Definitely a player that I still think could definitely rise up the list. It's just PTL, man. Y'all gotta put it together. That's all that's gonna have to happen because I do think that you guys have some very talented players, but it's just putting together the puzzle pieces for y'all. And then I would assume dragging it out would probably rise up these rankings. 6-1, 6 Rivals DX Typhoon. Now I don't know how long he's been with the squad, but I do believe this was his first week in ECL. Number 5, Tactical Nuke X from 4G Sports Atlantis. 4, Tycon from Belmonts. 3, Pambi from 4G Sports Mjolnir. 2 is Jake from Solus Gaming. And 1, Therocles, much to the chagrin of QST. I know he wanted Thero to stay at number 2 for as long as possible, but he makes the debut at number 1 for KOKG. Plenty of stuff to talk about with this side of the rankings. I can already hear my Discord notifications going off telling me I don't know what I'm doing, especially from Vita about Tycon's ranking. We'll get to it, but before we do, I want Yupflow to say his piece.
Yeah, like Typhoon had a really great early game. I would put him 5th over Tactical Nuke
Mm-hmm.
X. And then I would also do Jake first and Lee second. Like I just think like this week specifically, Jake had a better series.
Yeah, yeah. Thero had a kind of a dud in their game too. So I do weigh the most recent week, but I also weigh the body of work. I had Therocles higher last week. I didn't really think I could take them down. Jake is definitely pushing for number 1. Really, the top 3 players right here are pushing for number 1. Now, I know the Belmonts is upset with me. I can already tell. I'm feeling it from the past. The Tycon actually moved down a spot. Now here's the situation. Okay, yep. Well, you gotta stick with me. See if my reasoning is justified. Tycon did not look good on Kiana. I think everybody can agree. And Tycon is a player that I said is like the Smithy of ECL, where he does his role and he does it well. That doesn't lend itself to being, a very highly ranked player outside of like top 5, right? Maybe not 1 or 2, but definitely top 5. Why isn't Pambi below Tycon after Pambi lost? Bro, Pambi and Jake had themselves a series. Both of those players did very, very well. Tycon also did well outside of that Kiana game. And I feel like if they didn't lose that second game and Tycon just played what Tycon plays, he'd be at number 3 right now and Pambi at 4. That's not what happened. And like I said, people could be upset, but it's on you. It's on you. Am I justified, Yupflow? You can say no. You seem like a very nice individual. You don't want to hurt my feelings. I get it, but you can disagree with me here.
Uh, I agree with you. Like, what you show on the Rift is what we're gonna talk about, and if you underperform, then that's what happened.
All right. So if you get mad, you can shift your blame from me and put it on Yupflow because he had the last word. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I know. I know. Belmont's is probably upset with me. It is what it is. It's pretty close. Top four is definitely really close. I just think, and like I've said it before in the past, number three, number two, number one, Pambi, Jake, and Theracles show higher highs to me than Tycon does. But Tycon doesn't need to on Belmont's, right? It's really about T-Dye, Wolven, and Baru on that squad. It's really hard to play with five superstar players, right? And I think Tycon's filling that role nicely of being the glue to build comps around and the like. So I still think highly of Tycon. Just because they're at number four does not mean I think they're bad. The mid lane rankings. Don't look at the left side because I know I just got over talking about Belmont's being upset with me and it's going to continue. We got to talk about the bottom half. So at number 12, we have Vile Fox from Ember Flames, 11, Poogie from JRPP, 10, Feed the Dreams, Rainster, 9, Castor from Phantom Ship Lucifer, 8, GCCE, All Smites, Non Ulema. Now, kind of high for an E-sub, but I really think he popped off in game one with Fizz. So I think 8 was as low as I was willing to go. And then number 7, Pot of Greed from Mjolnir. Now, mid lane was tough. Let me know what you think of the bottom half before we move on to the top half.
I uh I think like all of these players or like 10 through 7 here are like very good. Like
Mm-hmm.
Castor, you know, the PTL bias, right?
Well,
But he had a
he
like
had a really nice game on Syndra.
yeah, and I would say like that matters a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I know like Pot of Greed, like he had a very good game on the Victor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Personally, I think I would do Castor 8th ahead of
Nanu.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about it. For sure. I don't know. I wanted to give this player. I'm gonna stop trying to pronounce their name, but the also my E-sub kind of their due for stepping in on short notice and going 12:08 on Fizz. I mean, that's pretty sick. But I could definitely see the argument for Castor being one spot higher. Um, like mid was tough. I'll just leave it at that. Mid was tough because a lot of these players did show very positive things. Um, but I gotta have a ranking some way, right? I can't just say like everybody should be, 5 or higher because it was so close. So kind of how the cookie crumbles. But this is why we do content, right? So people can get mad at me and drop comments below, or mostly they drop comments in ECL. Which hey, if you do it on YouTube and get some likes in, our goal hasn't been hit yet. So that's all I'm saying. Um, Top half of the power rankings, we have 6 Lucifer from Solus Gaming, 5 Razors for Life from Rivals DX, 4 Call Me Loops from Forge Esports Atlantis, 3 Linda72 from JRCC, 2 Beru from GCCE Belmonts, and number 1 Solo Rusher from KOKG. Now, Yupflow, everybody's going to be talking about Beru losing the top spot. Before I give you my reasoning, what's your reaction?
I mean, to me, I think like 11 to number 1 is all interchangeable to me. But Beru, from what I remember, he's more of like a supportive mid laner. So he's not really like the carry for his team, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I can see him like dropping, since he's like not like the number 1 option for his team.
Yeah. So Beru always performs well for GCC. Belmonts. Now that there's 2 teams, I guess I should specify. Here's my dilemma. I feel like Linda had a very nice game in Beru game 1. Some might say a better game than Beru game 1. Game 2, Beru plays their patented Morgana and has a very, very rough time into Linda. And so that's 2 points against Beru for this week. And then game 3, Beru does something pretty cool, locks in the Malphite mid, which you very rarely see, but doesn't really have a standout performance. And for I mean, just for the sake of clarity, I feel like KOKG and Solar Rusher, I mean, Solar Rusher popped off. And I got my boy Yupflow telling me that he was the playmaker on Silas in game one. And then game two locks in Echo and does extremely well as well. So maybe this is a wake up call for Beru to kind of just like start focusing up and honing in, because I know this player is good. Um, but I mean, like I said, mid lane was tough this week. Mid lane was very tough. I mean, if I did like a mid lane all pro, I would consider putting Linda at number one. Just because week in week out on a JRCC team that is not performing very well, Linda is a very very bright spot. And some might say that on another team, Linda would be the best mid laner in ECL. But performance does matter, and so Linda, while they're popping off, they haven't picked up wins. But Linda at number three, pretty easy for me to put them there. Um, call me Loops, Razors, Lucifer, and Pot of Greed were really hard. I really debated which order they should go, because I do think Pot of Greed had a really nice performance, but so did Lucifer. They came from the same series. Um, I'm not too sure of my rankings there, and I'm pretty sure they're going to change next week. But that's kind of just how they fell for this week. Um, but yeah, mid lane was hard. That I could put the. I'll probably do that. I'll make the title "Mid Lane Was Hard" this week, because it was a weird week. We move on to the bottom lane power rankings. Number 12, Fujin from JRPP. 11, Nubian King from Ember Flames. 10, Muddy Moody from JRCC. 9, Ballistic Demon from Feed the Dream. 8, Barbar Jonks from PTL. And 7, returning to this power rankings, is Kagran. Now, here's where I think I need to mention that Tauroma said he wouldn't get mad at me. The All Smites are here for the vibes, because Kagran gets a pentakill and he ends up number 7 on this list. I think, and part of it could be biased because I went over these games with Kagran and he knows that there were some things he could definitely have cleaned up on. Part of it could be like, I don't think JRPP is really that difficult of an opponent to face. And so All Smite kind of benefited from a lesser performing team. Kagran was kind of in a weird spot. I could have seen him as high as 5. But I think making a debut on a different team with a different support pairing, the jury's still out for this player. So despite a pentakill, ends up at number 7. The rest of the rankings we could talk about here, but Yupflow for the bottom half. Got any critiques for me?
Like, PTL bias, Barbar Jonks. Let's say he goes fit. That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
But I think like the bottom power rankings, they're good. Yep.
Yeah, Barbar's a player that I think, obviously the team has been struggling. I don't think I can give him enough credit for their laning phase. And I think I punished them maybe too harshly for the mid to late game. I know it's kind of a new role for Barbar. And so to step into a new role that's mechanically intensive like ADC and to perform very well is a pretty, unique thing and a neat thing to see. It's just one of these things that I wish, part of me just really wishes that Barbar could translate their early game success into the mid to late, because I feel like that would fix a lot of your guys' problems. But it just hasn't clicked. From my personal opinion, I'm not an expert, but it just hasn't clicked in the mid to late for this player quite yet. Now that could change, very well could change. That's why he's a number 8. Ballistic Demon. Hey, Ballistic Demon probably a little bit too low, but these are power rankings, and Ballistic Demon had a very, very tough week into Rivals DX, so they end up at number 9. Other than that, let's move on to the tops of the bottoms. 6, Muerte from Solus Gaming. 5, Husky from Rivals DX. 4, Deadly Lowell from Atlantis. 3, DT Dub from Mjolnir. 2, Wolven Alchemist as part of Belmont's. And number 1, Mythic Chaos from Kingdoms of Kittens Gasai. Now, like you had made mention earlier in the podcast, DT Dub actually had a very nice performance despite the Mjolnir dropping 2 straight games. So moves down from number 1 to number 3. Thought about having Deadly jump them because Deadly has been performing very, very consistently. It was close. Deadly ultimately ends up at number 4, like you see. Husky and Muerte, part of me thinks they might be too high because they haven't really had high highs in ADC, but they're very, very consistent. And I think consistency is an underrated aspect of these power rankings. Very rarely are Husky and Muerte going to just straight up lose you games. So that's why they end up at number 5 and number 6. Could they be lower? Sure. That's up for debate. That's where they stand. Wolven's been a very nice addition to Belmont's. Looks incredibly strong next to Beta. And then Mythic Chaos, speaking of consistency, week in, week out, they're doing numbers. DT Dub falls, Mythic Chaos and Wolven end up jumping them.
Yeah, me personally, I would have DT Dub first, and maybe like Mythic Chaos like take his place third.
Mm-hmm.
I think like DT Dub and Wolven Alchemist, they've proven like they can like carry games,
Mm-hmm.
like, and I like believe like they're like clear top two. That's no shade to like Mythic Chaos or Deadly Lull though. They've both had like very good games. It's just I've seen like higher highs from those two, Wolven Alchemist and DT Dub.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, they are power rankings, so I do value the last week's performance. DT Dub had to take a drop despite them actually playing very well. I guess had to is strong. Like you said, you could definitely have the argument of still remaining at number 1, but they didn't win. They still played well, so they end up number 3, still top 3 for this week. Will they probably rise again? Probably, right? But number 1, number 2, and number 3, I'm pretty confident are ECL's top 3 carries from the bottom lane. Hey, if I got the list wrong, y'all have to drop a comment and tell me why people should beware, because I'm willing to hear out arguments. Um, so long as they're not, hey, I just know this player, they should be higher. Um, we move on. Support power rankings. Now, support was actually kind of easy for me this week. Number 12, Tracker Jackers from JRPP. 11, Nubian Princess 24 from Ember Flames. 10, Lucifer 626 from Jolly Rogers Calypso's Calamity. Dark Archon 423 from PTL at 9. 8, Samurai from GCCE All Smite. And 7, Sauce from Rivals DX. Sauce was playing jungle up until this point, rightfully back in his support position. 7 through 12, there they are. Yupflow. What do you think?
Uh, yeah, I think 7 through 12 looks good. I personally would have like Dark Archon like maybe 8th or
Mm-hmm.
7th. But you know, like game uh records, like they matter a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh like I remember like Samurai was running around as like a grubling clearing vision. So I don't like putting him low. That moment was just like too funny to me.
That's funny. Yeah, Samurai on the Nico and the Bard was able to roam and roam often. Um, was their debut. Jury could still be out. Should they be 9? Should they be 8? I could definitely see the argument for it. Ultimately, what you see is what you get. Number 6, Chubby Chernobyl from Feed the Dream. 5, RK Out of Nowhere. from 4G Sports Mjolnir, 4 Red Panda from Solus Gaming, 3 Helium Bamboo from KOKG, 2 Crow from Forge Esports Atlantis, and 1 Beatamana from GCCE Belmonts. Uh, Chubby, despite the loss, actually looked pretty solid. I think, game two maybe a little bit questionable. Should Shoss be higher? Probably than Chubby, just based off of that week alone and a snapshot. But this was Sauce returning to the support role, so has a little bit more to prove these last couple weeks than maybe most, just because they were playing jungle previously. RK out of nowhere. Like GT Dub actually performed pretty well in their series. Game 2 was a little bit more shaky than game 1. Um, did they drop too low? Should they still be, top 3, top 4 maybe? But we'll give credit where credit is due. Red Panda, Helium Crow, and Beatamana have been playing very well. Your thoughts here, Flo.
Um, so this week in particular, I personally think Chubby Chernobyl like outperformed Crow this week.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes like on the Emilio, I'm just like saying like Crow, please just ult the Lucian like now.
Mm-hmm.
And then like it would come just like a bit too late, and Lucian would have to take like a lot or use like a sum. But yeah, I think Chubby Chernobyl like performed really well, like game one on the Seraphine. But like other than that, like yeah, I think the support rankings here are very fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's a if all they are is fun, then I've probably done my job. Nothing too egregious, at least according to Yupflow. So there are your positional power rankings plus the team power rankings. Now we're gonna put it back on us to talk a little bit about some hot takes. Not very many this go around, probably because I forgot to uh, ask for them, but nonetheless, there are some. So, uh, commenter from the video, mild take, but I think that some players play support not because they love the role, but because they cannot make it on another role, or they just want to play with a certain person. Yupflow, your response to this admittedly mild take from Ace Z Wild 10.
Um, I think like support is uh like actually like a difficult role. Like you're tasked with like vision and like generally like CC or like support, and like very often like uh, supports in IBSG, it's like difficult to get the most out of your kit.
Mm-hmm. So do you think they're just playing it because they're stuck there? Because their friends are saying, hey, just play support? Or do you think they actually enjoy playing the role and they choose to be there?
Uh, yeah, I think you'd like have to like actually want to play support. Like that role is difficult. Like
Okay.
when I'm autofilled support, like it's not going well. But yeah, it's not just a role where you can like sit by yourself. You have to like lead your team with like vision.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe a kind of a hotter take. I do agree that if they want to play with a certain person, then of course, like you guys just end up going to a bot. Um, I think that Sigma really used to exist in old league, right? So support was kind of this role where you knew you weren't going to get a lot of gold. You were basically just a walking ward and a playmaking tool. But it wasn't until like Mad Life and then some of his followers, right? So like you see it with Busio and KC, Carria, of course, with T1. There's been plenty of support since Mad Life that actually show the power of the role, and so I think I would also agree with you, Yupflow. I think most people that play the role want to be there. Maybe in IBSG, it's a matter of hey, they're not comfortable like CSing or farming or trading or whatever. But the higher you go, it's definitely not really the case. Um, Yeflo's dropped his own hot take to react to. PTL goes undefeated for the rest of the regular season. Now, you do have two more opponents coming up, one of which is Solus Gaming in the cross division, and then your last remaining divisional game, which would be Forge Esports Atlantis. Now, I won't ask you to rank your hot take, whether it's hot or not, but I will ask you to give me some reasoning as to why you're boldly proclaiming you'll go undefeated.
Uh, like I think PTL, we're very talented. Like you said, like we're just having a bit of difficulty like putting it together, like late game specifically. And I think that is something that we've been working on, and it's something that's going to get cleaned up, and we are going to go into playoffs strong.
Okay, you've heard it here first. I'm a believe it when I see it kind of guy. And I said last pod that I'm beginning to be less and less of a believer. So I will believe it when I see it. I think it's a pretty hot take, especially with your cross division matchup. Atlantis, I could see being pretty close. But Solus seems like a step above most of the competition. And so we'll have to see. I'm rooting for you, yep, Flo. I want your hot take to come true. But it is a very hot take, in my opinion. And then last but not least, Sal Roma saying All Smite only loses to Belmont's. Pretty hot take, in my opinion. Not a lot of game to prove it. Like, they have JRCC as their cross division matchup, and then they have Feed the Dream, or not Feed the Dream, sorry. They have Solus Gaming as their last week in week 7. So that would be the prove it game. If Allsmite can come in and win that game, then I would maybe agree with this take. But so far from what I've seen, it's a very hot take.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. They went against JRBP this week, and uh, I don't think like All Smite played like extremely well. They did 2-0, but it was kind of messy. Uh, and I just think they're like about like a mid-table team personally.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, I mean, their prove it game is coming in week 7. What I will say is if you end up losing to JRCC, which I think is going to be a pretty close game, and I'm kind of jumping the gun here because we do have to get into the previews, but I would maybe rein it back until week 6 happens and All Smite picks up the win because I feel like that was going to be close. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves though. So, um, last but not least, we have the preview upflow, and then we're done. Pretty easy pod. You made it very easy for me. Um, so thank you for that. So here's your preview cross map cross division matchups. So we have the Forge Esports Civil War that will be streaming on Ember's Twitch. Atlantis taking on Mjolnir. We have GCC Belmont's taking on Kingdom of Kittens Gasai. Phantom Troop Lucifer taking on Solus Gaming. Feed the Dream going up against Ember Flames. Rivals DX up against JRBP, and then JRCC taking on All Smites. I'm kind of glad that matchup was last because I find that pretty intriguing. But first, we'll go in order. We'll talk about the Civil War happening on stream, Atlantis versus Mjolnir. I've seen these teams scrim several times. Um, so I have a pretty good feeling about what might end up happening, but I want to cover it from all angles. Yupflow, what's your prediction here for the Forge Esports Civil War?
Um, this might be a hot take, but I think like Atlantis is on the rise, and I think like it's gonna be a hard series for them, but uh, I really hope they can take it 2-1.
That's interesting because if Atlantis wins, that does not help you in your playoff dreams. But you think Atlantis will take the 2-1? I think I'm going to go Mjolnir 2-0 simply because I've seen them play more than most, these two teams against each other. Now, I will say this. There's a caveat. Um, they have to keep a pretty positive, a PMA, a positive mental attitude. I know they just came off a loss, right? And like I said, if you're going to lose, you want to do it in the regular season. But what you don't want to do is have that loss derail the rest of your season. And so if they can avoid that, I think they should be able to bounce back against Atlantis. I do think it'll be a competitive series, but in my opinion, Mjolnir is still the better team. We'll have to see what happens. Um, I've seen Atlantis take off games, so we'll see. What's curious is both these teams know each other very well, so I'm curious to see what kind of draft developments or game plans might change than what they've shown each other in scrims. Um, Belmont's taking on KOKG now. Belmont's the only remaining undefeated team. KOKG, a team that has been hot streaking, hasn't lost a game since week 1. I'll go ahead and take my prediction first. We'll go back and forth that way. I'm actually going to go KOKG 2-1. I think it's going to be a 3-game series either way. Um, for Belmont's side, this is going to be their toughest game that they've played this season. And it could be a wake up call. I think it's going to be a wake up call for them. And I see Gasai taking a 2-1 victory. Um, KOKG, plenty of talent. They've been performing very well individually and as a team. And Belmont's, I can't say they haven't been performing well. But I just think KOKG has the upper hand in this particular matchup.
Uh, yeah, I think like it could go either way as well. I would personally lean towards like Belmont's, just like purely because of their experience.
Mm-hmm.
But like they're very closely matched teams. I would say like all of their players are like equally talented. So yeah, it's gonna be a 2-1, I believe. I would say for GCC Belmonts.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to see. I like the call out. They match up very well into each other. I'm curious to see how the top lane matchup goes between. I believe it's going to be T back for Belmont and Ratsu. Um, if Ratsu is able to kind of nullify the what T wants to do in most of Belmont's games, then the series gets very interesting, right? That's the matchup within the series that I have my eyes on, but we'll have to see what ends up happening there. Fantasy Lucifer, your own team taking on Solus Gaming. Now you said you're gonna go undefeated the rest of the way, so I'm assuming you're gonna win. Now's your chance to tell me, without divulging too much information, what it's gonna look like.
Okay. So I've heard IDK Inc., I believe. He's kind of like a tank merchant, just like me.
Uh huh.
So that'll be very uh something. Uh, I know Jake, he's very good. He'll look a lot. I think he'll look better in the series than dragging it out, but I think like the bot lane and the mid lane is where we PTL can make a lead. Like Barbar Jonks, his laning has been like very good, just generally all throughout the season. And as well as Castor's, his laning has been pretty good. And yeah, that's where I believe we'll make will make our advantage. And then, like I said, we've been working on like the late games, and I believe we're just gonna clean up there.
Gotcha. Yeah, Flo, you've been a wonderful co-host, and I mean no disrespect by this. I got Solus going 2-0. Now, if everything you said comes true, then it will be a competitive series. But right now, I just got to go off of what's been shown the last several weeks. Um, Solus is a team that I would say of the top tier teams could could have the highest highs. Right? They could end up winning the whole shebang. But I also feel like they have pretty low lows in some of their losses, um, game losses, and then their matchup loss. Um, so I think this series is more about which versions of each team show up. If it's the PTO from early season, then the series is very competitive. Or if it's the Solus Gaming that low rolls on individual performances, then it'll also be very close. But I gotta make a prediction. I'm gonna go 2-0 Solus. Now, if ECL has taught me anything, excuse me, uh, it's very unpredictable. So who knows? What might end? I could even see it happening. Is everything I predict is actually the opposite. So we'll have to see. Um, Feed the Dream taking on Ember Flames. Now I know Feed the Dream coming off a pretty brutal loss against well now I'm just spacing. It was Atlantis, right? Yeah.
Yes, Atlanta.
Yes. Feed the Dream coming off a pretty brutal loss, not because it was like just a shellacking, but just because of the playoff standings, it was kind of tough. They're taking on an Ember Flames team that is now out of playoffs. As much as I want to believe that Ember Flames is gonna like have the shackles, unleashed because they're out of playoffs and now they can play freely. I don't know if it really happens against Feed the Dream. I'm gonna go Feed the Dream. Here's where I'm gonna give two options. I'll go 2-0 if Lily's there, 2-1 if she's not. That's my prediction.
Uh, yeah, like I think it's just like very difficult for Ember Flames, like now in the season. But also like with Feed the Dream, like they're constantly like swapping mid and top between each other. And to me, like that is not a sign of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I just like to give Ember Flames the benefit of the doubt and say they're able to pick up a game here, and it's 2-1, Feed the Dream.
Yeah, yeah, we'll have to see. I agree. There's a lot of moving parts for Feed the Dream, the role swaps, if Lily's gonna play, whatever it might be. To where I could see a 2-1 definitely happening. Rivals DX playing JRBP. JRBP in a very similar position to Ember Flames. Um, I think Rivals DX, with the addition of Typhoon and Sauce moving back to support, is probably better than most people think. Um, Now, unfortunately, it happened for them so far into the season that they put themselves in a pretty precarious position when it comes to potentially making playoffs. However, this matchup is cross division. It's against a JRPP that's been struggling. I see Rivals continuing where they left off last week, and picking up a 2-0 against JRPP.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I think just like Typhoon will be able to like really secure the early game, and like Nick Bob and Poogie, that's like Black Pearl's standouts.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Bob is going into Mossman, who is like number one right now, and that's just gonna be difficult for him. Where Black Pearl has the advantage is mid lane. Uh, I think like that too is like kind of a toss up as well. I know Poogie, he was really playing well on that Ari. But yeah, I'd have to agree. Like they're just not matched up well against Rivals DX, and it'll be 2-0 Rivals.
There we go. Last but not least, we have Jolly Rogers Calypso's Calamity versus GCCE All Smite. Now, I'll set the scene and then I'll ask for your prediction because I do want to finish with mine for this particular matchup. Um, All Smite is, of course, a team of almost all junglers going against a Jolly Rogers Calypso's Calamity that's still trying to pick up, I believe, their second win of the season. JRCC, I think, is more talented than the record indicates, and All Smite, there's a lot of question marks. So there's your matchup in a nutshell. Yupflow, who do you got?
I'd have to say GCC All Smite 2-1. I think the jungle matchup where Tal Roma is in the jungle, I think he's just gonna be better than let me see. Than who
Vexed? I think it was
JRCC have.
Vexed.
It was Vex last week. I think that might have been an emergency sub. They have Old Man Hands on their on their
Oh, yeah, because I think Old Man Hands was on cooldown because they had played for Ember the previous week. You're right.
yeah, so I just think like Tal Roma will just be able to like take over the map over like whoever JRCC have, and that'll just mostly be the game.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the solo lanes go in this one, particularly on the mid lane. Lynn is a player that I think against a team that is not quite cohesive yet, which I could assume All Smite might not be. Lynn is a player that might be able to abuse that from the mid lane role. But like I said, I feel like this one's gonna be close. I think JRCC ends up picking it up 2-1. Um which am I confident in? No. If you couldn't tell from the way I'm trying to explain my reasoning, I really think JRCC, if they do win, it's going to be on the back of Linda. I think Linda can get it done. That's basically what I'm going off of. I think JRC or for GCCE All Smite. Um, after watching their games, they got to clean up some map movements and some other things, which JRCC has had a whole season to kind of work on. So we'll see. I think it'll be close either way, but I got JRCC winning that one. There is your preview for the Cross Division Week 6. I've been Righteous. That's been Yupflow. Yupflow, before we let you go, once again, thank you so much for coming on, giving your excellent expertise in breaking down some of the matchups, where you view particular like power rankings for both the players and teams. Now's your chance to shout anything out before you go before I close this one, and we can all go back to celebrating America's birthday.
Yeah, like thank you for having me on, and it's been like a good time. And yeah, PTL, we're gonna show up. We're gonna really do some damage.
You've heard it here first. Uh, Once again, thank you to Ember for putting on the league that we can cover. Thank you so much to Forge for allowing us to make the content and the like. If you're a fan of either of those organizations, Discords will be in the links below. Give our last patch breakdown some love. I feel like we hit the nail on the head for some of the things we talked about in there. We've seen the rise of priority for um I can't even think of the item now. The one Galio builds. That's all I gotta say. So go check that one out. Other than that, thank you so much for tuning in, and like always, we'll see you next week. If you're celebrating this 4th of July weekend. Celebrate responsibly, celebrate safely, and we will see you next time. Have a good one.